Welcome to episode 1, Armo's knot skills. We're going to take you through some of the knots you use in your climbing setups. We'll start with the obvious, the figure eights. So, simple figure eight knot. On the line, we just cross it over, round the back, down through the hole, and then it makes that looking knot there. So that's a figure eight just on the rope, and that's the start of your rethread figure eight. You could also use that as a stopper knot if you wanted to on the end of your rope. But we'll turn that one into a figure eight. It's obvious and easy. Sorry, a rethread figure of eight. So to rethread it, I just thread the loop through the harness and then go back through the knot. So you can see the knots there. Where the tail of the rope comes out, I just go back into the knot in the same spot and then follow it round. So around the back, down through the guts, and back out through there. Try and dress your knots so they sit. Thread. We can also do a figure eight on the bite. So here's my length of rope. If I just take a bite of that rope and follow that figure eight knot tying, then I've got the loop on the end of the bite. Sorry, the bite on the end of the rope, and we just need to make sure that there's a decent tail on that. Perfect knot for clipping into an anchor. If I want to put a stopper on the end of it, this is heaps of tail, but I could also do a stopper knot there, and then I've got a figure eight with a stopper. Beautiful. It's another one on the bite that we're going to do, but it's the bunny ears. So I take a big bite of rope. I'm going to make it a nice big one this time, use a fair bit, and then I do a big loop on my figure eight, but when I go to thread back through that last part, instead of threading the whole loop through, thread another bite through, and then this tail that's left over goes right over the top of the whole knot, and then I pull it tight, and my figure eight has bunny ears, 2 loops. They're really easily adjustable. I can pull a little bit out of one loop and then easily, if I got the right one, out of that side, and then easily make this longer. So then we've got 2 different length loops. So this is a good one that can also be used to join 2 pieces of gear together in an anchor setup. So if I've got one piece of gear here and another one there, and they're sort of quite close but a little bit apart, I could use a figure eight bunny ears to join those 2 pieces together. It's also the one that we use on our abseil setup. So at the apex, our anchors come down to the apex, and then we use a bunny ears, and we clip the abseil line onto one and the belay line onto the other. The last figure eight knot I'm going to show you is a directional figure eight, and so it's part way down a line, and it's used to create a big loop which can go up to an anchor, to clip into an anchor. So yeah, it's an inline knot. So the way we do it, we take the loop and sort of imagine it's where we want it, and then I go in the opposite direction, and you can see there's a little crossover there. When I've brought it down, I've got a crossover, and then I tie my figure eight from there. So I go around the back, over, and the loop has to come back out where this line comes in. So I end up with all three lines here, the loop and the rope coming in, they all come out the same end of that figure 8 knot. And this is a really good knot because it's really easy to adjust for an anchor. So if I need it to go a bit further that way, I can pull a bit of line on this and drag that into the loop, and it makes that loop a little bit longer. Or vice versa, if I want to go a bit further down, I could bring the whole thing down the knot. Joining an inline anchor if you got a second piece. So that's the figure 8's done. We're going to move on to a clove hitch because it's another really good knot in climbing. You can basically get by with knowing some figure 8s and a clove hitch, and you'll be able to do great setups with those two knots. The way the clove hitch works, I've got the rope here, I make a loop. In the same direction I make another loop, and then this loop crosses behind, and then I clip my carabiner through that. Okay, and then that can just pull tight there. It's a great knot because it's also really easily adjusted. You know, I can just move it down the knot, down the rope really easily. So if I need to take a bit more rope in on an anchor, it's a super easy adjusting knot for anchors. It can slip sometimes unless it's really cinched up tight. So yeah, if it's at the end of an anchor system, it's sometimes not a bad idea to put a stopper knot on it of some sort, or even finish with a figure 8 that then clips into the carabiner. Alright, we're going to step it up a bit now to a bowline. And a bowline is a knot that you'll use in your climbing setup if you want to tie around a bollard or something like that. So the way it works, if let's say that's my bollard, could be any size, could be huge. So I loop my rope around it and pull it to where I want it, and then I make a loop in the other end, and then this needs to go, depending on which way I've made the loop, it needs to go through the loop, but it's sort of got to hold the loop in place like that. So I've gone under and over on that one, and then from there I need to go around the back and back down through the hole. So I think and then that should follow this line back out. I think the saying is the rabbit comes out the hole, runs around the tree and goes back down the hole. And there's the bowline there. Bowlines in a climbing setup always need to be locked off with a stopper knot. So I would need to put a stopper on the end there. So that's a bowline with a stopper. Just say howdy to the neighbour. Yeah, all good. So next knot we're going to do is a munter hitch. So the munter is, or Italian hitch, it's a releasable knot, and it's the one we use to tie our abseil line on, so that if a student gets their hair stuck in the abseil line halfway down, we can release it. So the way I do the munter is I make a loop and then I just pass the tail behind it, and then I just clip those two pieces of rope in. So it's there, and clip those two in. Occasionally people end up, in doing that, accidentally doing a clove hitch, which can be a real problem. But yeah, so make that loop and then just pass the rope behind and then clip the carabiner through those two, and then there's the munter, and I can release rope and let it slide through. So when we do our, I can also take rope in with that, so you can belay with a munter hitch. Hopefully you guys can see that okay there. But if that's an abseil line going down, and there's my munter, I've got to also remember to put half hitches in it. So take plenty of rope, I go round, there's one half hitch, two half hitches, see that? Munter with three half hitches. Okay, next knot we're going to have a look at is the fisherman's. It's good for tying two pieces of rope together. And the way you do the fisherman's, or the way I do it, is I think about tying one piece of rope to the other, and then I tie the other piece to the original. So I'll start tying my blue rope to the yellow, and I'm just going to do it with a granny knot, basically. Sorry, that's a bit hard for you to see. A granny knot around and then through. So I've tied the blue piece of rope onto the yellow, and now I'm going to tie the yellow piece of rope onto the blue, same way. So just do a, and then I should, I don't know if you can see that, just be able to slide those two together, and they sort of squeeze tight and become a fisherman's. That's not good enough in a climbing scene. In a climbing setting it needs to be a double fisherman, so you've got to do double loops. So we'll do that. So I'll go back to the blue one. We'll tie the blue onto the yellow, but when we do it this time we'll go around like we went to do a granny knot the first time, but we'll do a second loop. So I've got two loops around, and then the tail is going to go up through both those loops, and it looks like that. And I'll do the same on the yellow. So tying the yellow rope to the blue, I go around once and then around a second time, and then the tail needs to go through both loops, so you can sort of see the two loops there. Tail goes through there, crank it tight, and then you can see now there's two loops. It's double fisherman's, and it needs to have nice long tails as well, so you know that tail there is probably a bit short, but that's a nice long tail. It's the same knot that we use to tie prussiks together. So when you're tying your prussik you use a double fisherman's, and the double fisherman's over time it does sort of work its way out. You know, I'm talking over long periods of time, so we should always be checking that our prussiks have got a decent tail on them, because I have seen prussiks work their way back until they've got a really short tail, and I noticed that once when I was hanging on one, which was quite alarming. Also the reason why you never hang on just one prussik.